Browne. Welcome to episode 6 of my crafting podcast. This is a vlog about knitting, crochet, spinning, yarn dyeing, anything else that seems like a good idea at the time. I'm coming to you from rural North Yorkshire in the north of England, where I live with my husband, 3 daughters and 3 cats. I thought I'd give you a little bit of my little Siamese there. Is that going to work? Hope she's not too distracting. I just had to stop recording because she was coughing. Right, so that was my new intro. I am in the process of changing the name of the podcast. You'll see if you watch the first video that Funky 40 was a working title just based on my Ravelry username. And it's taken me 6 episodes to come up with the imaginative title of Mel Browne Crafting Podcast. But actually I'm doing a lot more stuff online now, and I just want to make it easier for people to be able to find me. And sort of linking it all to my name makes that a lot easier. So, Mel Browne Cat and Crafting Podcast. So, what else do I need to say to you? So yeah, I'm changing the name on YouTube, but YouTube's not allowing me to do that at the moment because I changed it too recently, so that will change. But my name on Instagram is now Mel Browne Crafting Podcast, and the same for the Ravelry group for this podcast. I'm still Funky 40 on Ravelry, but the group for this podcast is called Mel Browne. But it says formerly Funky 40, so I am the artist formerly known as Funky 40. I'll keep that going for a while. Okay, so today we have knitting, we have crochet, we have spinning and dyeing, and our first knit along. So lots to get on with, so let's just dive in. I've got notes here because last time I wasn't very organised. I've got a new place to record, which I'm going to be static in, and oh, do you know, I had a blanket hung up over here so that you could see it, and it's fallen down. Right, okay. So this is where I'm going to record in future, and so I'm going to be much more organised. So let's start straight in with where are they now. So this is catching you up on projects that you saw before. Let's start with the Weekender. So this is my project, very loosely based on the Weekender, because I'm doing little motifs, flower motifs. Now, I'd said to you last time that I'd learned my lesson about running out of yarn and trying not to do that again. Well, I forgot my lesson, because look, I did the 4 and then I ran out on this one. So, well, if every project tells a story, this one's certainly telling a story of incompetence. But I don't mind. There's that one, and I'm trying to do 2 of these in between each podcast, so basically 1 a week. And there we go. You've seen these colours before. So that's my 2 for this week. That's 28. So next time I will have 30, and I'll probably just picture them all on a quilt cover, a single quilt, just to see where we're going to go with those next. So that's my Weekender. Now, my mad sewing project, the 4 C's, and I can never remember what they are. I was talking to Doll Belly the other day, and she was saying, I was shouting at you when I was watching it. It's, oh, I don't know what it was. Confused, chaotic. Anyway, I'm doing a sewing project which is clashing and cluttered and all lots of things that begin with C. It's my daughter has helped me with bits of it. It's just basically me exploring whatever I want to do in sewing or embroidery or buttons or whatever. And I have finished it because I got really tired of making that explanation every time. So I have finished it. Let me just show it to you, because I have started the process of making it into a bag. So here it is. I love, you saw up to about here. These are all the new things up here. So a bit of crochet, a bit of blanket stitch doubled, and that's new. So just to show you the rest of it in full multicolour, Technicolor, whatever. Oh, that's not it all, is it? that's the little one. I have started to make it into a bag, so I actually did some sewing. There we go. So, if you don't like the look of it, you know, don't be worried. You're not meant to. So, I've sewn on the accent bit at the top. That's going to be where the drawstring is going to be, and the lining is this, and the back of the bag is that. So it's all sewn together. It's a very, very simple bag tutorial online. I will put a link to it in the show notes. By the way, everything I mention here, all the patterns, you'll see them obviously pop up probably up here. But I will also put all the details and links in the show notes. The link for the Ravelry page will be down below. And then in that Ravelry page there will be all the links you can click on to go to the patterns and everything, and I'll put the link in for this very simple bag thing. So what I need to do now is to sew around the edges and then turn it and sort out the whatever. So I should have that done for next time. It will be properly a bag by then. So that's my 4Cs, not finished as well, finished as a sewing project, as an embroidery project, but not finished as a sewing project. So this was very fast and dirty. I always describe my sewing as fast and dirty. Starry Eyes Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful describes her bags she makes as her dodgy bags. And I like that. I've got my fast and dirty bags. I suspect that mine make Ali's look not very dodgy at all. But there we go. So, I wanted to show you something about that. One of the things I do with that is I just use the bit of the, I get it back from the discard pile. This bit here, for example, just all these bits of chain stitch. I just love, is that what it's called? I just love doing those. They're just so much fun. But what I used is just all the little bits of embroidery thread that I had left that were too small to do anything properly with. And I've also got, I wanted to show you my fabric box. So it's an old iPhone box. And it's just got all these bits. So you know when you're cutting fabric and you cut out a main piece and then you've just got some small pieces which you can imagine using for something, but they're not big. I've got a pile of those. And then there's the little tiny offcuts, which, you know, what are you ever going to use these for? They're tiny. That's one of my favourite fabrics ever. And little things that came out of a kit for something. Don't know where they came from. And really scraps from the chopped off a pattern. So this is basically where all these bits go, and they would normally die, wouldn't they? They would normally go to the bin, but I keep them all, and then I find something to use them for, and that's what that part of what that project was about, using up bits and pieces and just having fun doing the stitches that I enjoyed. So chuck that over there. Okay, next, the 365 project, which is the 1 button a day thing. I'm not going to show you that today because I haven't really made very much progress with it, so it's not really worth looking at. My Selbu mittens that didn't fit. I have frogged them and I haven't restarted them. And actually that brings me on, my Rita socks. I showed you my Rita socks last time. They are here, but they nearly weren't. Because I just felt that there's a lovely little lace pattern. Let me show you. Lovely, delicate lace. It's called Delicate Sparkles, this pattern that Danny has created. And I just really felt that the yarn was beautiful and the pattern was beautiful, but they weren't really made for each other because you can't really see, and the contrast of my skin colour underneath, it doesn't really show it. And I thought I'm going to have to frog them and make something else with this yarn and this pattern with some other yarn. And at that point I had a really, really low point. So I have sort of 2 weeks in between podcasts, and the first week 1 is a down week for me. I don't know whether you ever experienced this, but because knitting and crochet is so much a part of how I cope with life, my therapy, my mindfulness time, that if it isn't going well, then nothing else goes well, and I just get really down. And that first week when I knew I had to frog the Selbu mittens, and I felt like I had to frog the Rita socks, and I just really felt that nothing was going right with my knitting, and I felt really, really down. So I did frog the Selby mittens, but I decided not to frog the Rita socks, possibly because I just didn't have the heart for it, but also I think they're okay. You can see how beautiful the yarn is. There's one specific spot. This is really strange, but can you see this little one stitch? Really light. It just feels to me like a dove on a stormy sky. I love it, and I just didn't want to frog them, so maybe it won't show off the yarn to the best. But anyway, as you can see, I'm doing the 2 at a time. Not my favourite technique to do cuff down, but that's okay. And I'm doing a heel flap as per the pattern. Apart from the needle size, I'm actually following the pattern so far. And it's yeah, I haven't done a heel flap in a long time, but I'm doing them both at the same time, so that's great. So I think the pattern for me is a really nice balance of a bit of pattern, a bit of interest, and then a little bit of just mindless knit. I like that sort of balance of doing a bit of both. So yeah, I am enjoying it. It's pretty. Oh, look, see, if I had blue skin, teal skin, that would be great, wouldn't it? You'd see the pattern really nicely. Okay, so Stormy Sky, that shawl in the red and green and glitter. Again, that's my taking out project. I don't really do it at home. It's just next to my handbag. If I'm out, I grab that with me, and I can make that anywhere. So I haven't made much progress, and because of the design of it, you wouldn't really be able to see what I had. So that's just pottering away. It's all fine, but nothing to show you. Likewise with the memory blanket, I was doing 1 square a day, and I said last time that wasn't really sustainable, but it was fun. But I've been concentrating on the socks really, so I haven't done, again, I've done a few more squares, but it's not worth showing you. Interlocking Crochet, I'm really enjoying this. So I showed you last week this book by Tanis Gallic. I'm guessing that's how you spell it, you pronounce it. She seems to be the US expert on interlocking crochet. So for anybody who hasn't come across it before, you work in 2 separate colours and you interweave them. And you can come up with some great stuff. So this is the most recent one I've done, which I'm really, really happy with. The texture of it is just amazing, and it's just, yeah, great. So just ironing out some kinks in the pattern. Not there are problems with the pattern, but the design of the way it starts, I don't like it, so I'm trying to find a new way of doing it. So I'm really enjoying that. I'm working a bit on that. I think that is all of the stuff that you've already seen. So what about new whips on the block? Well, I mentioned Hotel of Bees last time, and my yarn came for it. So it's Scapious Stone Washed. I've never worked with it before, and it came, and to be honest, I was a bit disappointed in the contrast, because there's 2 main colours, as you'll have seen from the picky. There's 2 main colours, and then there's one at the end which comes creeping in. So there's 3 balls of each of these and 1 of this. And I don't think the contrast is anything like, I was trying to go with the colours that were in the pattern, but the yellow is a much brighter, or maybe the cream is a white. They refer to it in the pattern as white. I don't think I really saw that as an option on the website. Deramores I ordered from. So I don't think the contrast is really there, but I was really, really keen to get started, so I did anyway. And one of the things I love about the Scapious balls is I love to centre pull. I really hate it when a ball is bobbling around and getting in the way. And they've got this little, what does it say? Easy start. So you don't get this yarn vomit, as some people call it, or yeah, yarn prolapse. Loads of stuff coming out. You just start straight away. So I love that. So here is the beginning of my Hotel of Bees. So I've done the first panel and I'm on to the second one. I don't know how much you'll see the contrast from a different distance. Oh, it's not too bad. I kind of like that thing where it looks to be kind of all one colour from a distance, and when it close up, it's, I don't know, it'll be fine. I'm only ever going to see it close up, and that's really all that matters, isn't it? So this is the beginning. Absolutely loving this. I was a bit worried about starting it because it is meant to be my holiday project. I'm going away 2 weeks tomorrow. It's meant to be my holiday project, and I was worried about starting it too soon and getting really obsessed by it and then not wanting to put it down, and then it's done before my holiday. But it's a big project, so I don't think that's going to happen. But it is the first big crochet project I've done in, I don't know, maybe ever. I do a lot of crochet, but it's mostly small modular things, little motifs, things like this. It's the first kind of big crochet project I may have ever done, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm obsessed with it. It's all I think about at the moment. And just the long rows. I think when you're knitting long rows, I often think, oh gosh, you know, if I do one row, it's going to take me 5 minutes or whatever. But the long rows of this are actually, I'm really enjoying them, because I think you just get into a stitch pattern and then you've got to the end of the row and you have to turn around and do something different. With this, there's a plenty of rows. I think it was 145 chains to start, and you're slowly decreasing at this end. So it's getting less than that, and it does come down then to a... Oh, I thought I had a picture. No, I don't have a picture. It does come down to a point. The rows are nice and long, so I'm really getting into the stitch. So I'm really, really enjoying it. So that's new. What else is new? Well, this isn't really new, but it kind of is. I showed you this last time, my spinning. So it was my first ever spun on the coloured one. And then my... Look at that. My friend Andrea says this is art yarn. And then I applied it with some of the yarn that I got from the workshop I did at Spring Into Wool. And it's very slubby, and I've kind of decided what I want to do with it. Biff Sugar Yarns has knitted with, oh, was it crochet? Let me think. Knitted as a cow with her first ever hand spun. And I'm inspired by that to actually do some of my own, because I really want to have, you know, this caught in history so that I know what I've done with it. This is this week's work. So my friend Andrew, who's an expert on spinning, although she wouldn't admit it, we had a session at Knit Group yesterday. You might have seen it if you have me on Instagram. There were 3 of us spinning in public. It was amazing. And she was helping us. And I hadn't realised I'd spun much like this, pretty thick and thin, and some bits I liked and some bits I didn't. I didn't realise that you can just have do-overs. So I just wound it into a ball and then respun it. And you can see still there are some very thick bits, sorry, some very thin bits, but the thicker bits are not as thick. And it is definitely more uniform. So I am really, really pleased with that. And I've definitely got some more to do. Actually, if you're local, there's a place with a blind called Henshaws in Knaresborough. And they have Fanny Loves Frou Frou from there, lovely name, has invited me to come along and do some spinning on Sunday there. Sunday they've got some kind of event there. I'm not sure what the time is yet. But so I'm going to go along and do some spinning there and just, you know, chat to people. So if you're local and you fancy coming along, come and say hello. So I'm definitely improving with that. Like I always say, it's worth doing poorly at first until you get the hang of it, and I'm really, really enjoying it. So that's spinning. Okay, let's consult the big list. So I've got a new segment today as well. So something new. Now I don't often have anything to show you in something new because I don't really buy much. But you know what? This podcast has proved to be quite an enabler because I bought more yarn since I started this podcast than I have since September all the way through to January or whatever, February. So, well, oh, actually this wasn't my fault. This was bought for me. My friend Dollbelly, has the Dollbelly Knits podcast. She went to the US because that's where she's from. And she bought this Madeline Tosh Twist Light. It is in colourway magenta. it is gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. So it's standard fingering weight, 384 meters. It's standard sock yarn. I don't think I'm going to make socks with it though. I think I'm going to make load. I've seen that. I think Little Bobbin Stanley made that, and it's pretty cool. So I'm probably gonna make that with it. So that is pretty lovely. I've never actually held Madeline Tosh yarn before, so I might just have to keep hold of it and cuddle it once a week for a month or two. So don't expect to be seeing that in a project anytime soon. What else? Oh yes, we had a little trip out to Knaresborough. And we went to Knitting Pretty. We're really lucky here. We've got Yarn Etc. I live near to Harrogate in North Yorkshire, so we've got Yarn Etc., which is a brilliant yarn shop in Harrogate. And if you're a bit further out in Knaresborough, there's Knitting Pretty. And we went there for a quick peek, and look what I got. So beautiful. It's 50% merino and 50% silk. And it's colourway blusher, for the love of yarn. So Diane, who runs Knitting Pretty, was wearing a little shawlette called Close to You, which looks a bit like a hitchhiker, but kind of, yeah, it's got the same kind of teeth, but it's got some lace bits. It was beautiful, and I really want to make that with this. But again, it's too beautiful to rush with, so I'm going to keep it and cuddle it for a little bit. But I also bought, you know, I buy pink sock yarn for hubby because his company colours are pink. So I'd got one from Yarn Etc. and now I've got one from Knitting Pretty. I'm trying to find the, it's the actual Opal. There we go. Yeah, I don't think it has a colourway name. That's just standard sock wool. Actually, this is 150 gram ball. So it's 420 meters. So whilst I've said I'll knit socks for hubby with it, I might not. I love it when they do that picture on the side of how it knits up. Yeah, I think that would be better with socks than anything else. It's just that it seems to be already got enough yardage for one of the bigger shawls like Martina Bames Match and Move. Anyway, that's rather beautiful. I also, little cat's back. Right, spinning book. Yes, my friend Linda, my design partner, is happily as absent-minded as I am, and she ordered this book because we've both been spinning. She was one of the 3 spinners yesterday, and she ordered this book, and then when she got it, she realised she'd already ordered it. She'd had it for years. So, sorry about the cat's bottom there. So she gave me one, and it's absolutely lovely. So it's Respect the Spindle by Abby Frankmont. And it's just one of those books with the most amazing pictures in it. I hope that light isn't too distracting. And it's got really good how-to pictures and stuff. So it's lovely. So I'm looking forward to studying that. So these are all new things, and I only bought 2 of those 4. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I also visited somewhere local. It's called the Cone Exchange. It's a sort of charity shop, thrift store type thing, but it's supported by and created by 2 large companies here. Tailors of Harrogate, Ali, you know about them for their teas, don't you? Tailors Teas, and Betty's Tea Shop. If you know Yorkshire, you'll probably know Betty's. They're owned by the same people, and they started this amazing shop to use up their offcuts, things they can't use, fabric. Started with the cones, you know, the cones that you sometimes get yarn on. It started with those to find a way of repurposing them, and it's an amazing place. I got some crochet hooks for teaching 20 beginners to crochet in June, because you do, and I bought some nice lovely second-hand crochet hooks for that. I also bought some amazing fabric. I didn't buy any yarn because, you know, I bought enough yarn. Look at this. Colours are amazing, and it's quite a big piece, and it's got something cut out of it, and that's probably why it ended up in that bin. It's not a perfect piece, but you know, you've seen the scraps I use. It's wonderful. Oh, look at that! There's even some little bit, I didn't even know that. There's little bits that were cut inside. And another piece that's similar, you can see where my tastes lie, teal and purple. Absolutely gorgeous. So they were £1 each. So absolutely wonderful place if you're local or anywhere near. It's really worth visiting. Gazing at my notes there, sorry. Cone Exchange, C-O-N-E, brilliant. So that's nearly all my new stuff. I also got this, but I'll tell you what that's for in a minute. So, yarn dyeing. Oh, Cat's trying to get out the door. I think I'll ignore him, see if he goes away. Clady, come say hello. No, I want to go upstairs and sleep on your bed, Mama. Oh, come on. No. Okay, so my yarn dyeing friend, Kathy, from New England. I was here in Old England and she was there in New England and we were dyeing on the same day. She sent me the Easter egg dye kits. If you're not from the US, you probably don't know what those are. I certainly didn't. But they're tiny little pellets. Oh, I didn't get them to show you. You'll see them in the pictures. So I dyed some yarn with those. Here's a few pictures of the process. And what my idea was, there's a pattern called the Bird of Fire. Here it is. And I wanted to make that, and it's for hand-dyed yarn. And I thought, I'm going to hand dye some for it. I got some inspiration from one of the podcasters I follow, whose mum had dyed something especially for a project, and I thought, oh, I haven't really done that yet. So that was my plan. So it started just as me and my yarn dyeing friend decided to do this pattern together. So this is how the yarn ended up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one because it's blue in the centre, and it slowly, lumpily maybe, comes out to this dark red. And then I'm going to carry on with the dark red of the centre of this, and it comes out to this pink. So it should be a kind of gradient from blue to pink. But we'll see how that looks. But it's a really great project for that, because you just get one skein of hand-dyed, obviously by hand-dyed or hand-painted, whatever you want to call it, really nice yarn. And then you buy one skein of, or one ball of contrast yarn. So then you can see from the pattern how that works. So that started to expand, because I talked about it a bit on the last podcast, and somebody said, oh, I fancy doing that, and somebody else said I fancy doing that, and then the designer came on herself, who's Sarah from Minnesota, and she said, oh, I was thinking about doing another one, so why don't I join in? So right, we've got our first knit along. I think the quorum for a knit along is probably 3, and we've got 5 or 6 now. So this is the first Mel Browne podcast knit along that I'm inviting you to take part in. You'll see in the link to the pattern, and all you need is one skein of each, a hand-dyed or a pretty yarn of some kind, and a contrast yarn. And I've started a thread for it on the Ravelry group, so again you can get the link for the Ravelry group down below. There's a thread especially for it, and I'm not a big rules person, so we're not going to have any rules about when you start or when you finish or whatever. As I say, there are 6 of us right now, and they're mostly personal friends of mine, but if we get a bit of interest and a few people join, then I'll look to get a prize for it, and we'll maybe start a finished objects thread, but at the moment it's just a bit of fun. So feel free to have a go at that and join us on there. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, I've got this new segment thing which is meant to be knit group. A lovely lady who I shan't mention because I don't want to embarrass her, joined the Ravelry group recently, and she introduced herself and said that it was like watching podcasts is like knitting with friends, and how lovely that is. And I thought, yeah, it's when I've watched podcasters, I really feel like I've got to know them, and it's a bit like a knit group. So I've decided to have a segment called Knit Group, where I talk about things that we might talk about in a knit group. So the knit along is the first of those. Got that a bit out of sequence. The other thing is, Do you remember the socks that I did, the blue ones with a little slip stitch in between the colours? I said I was going to release a pattern for that, and I have. So it's called Opus 1602. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'll put a link on, you can download it for free, and have a go at that. It's really easy, and it's really lovely. There's nothing technical in it. You're not going to find anything you haven't seen in other patterns, and you know, so there's no charge for it. It's just pulling together what I've done. And again, if you want to have a go, then just go and do that. Right. Okay, that's the knit groups segment. Okay, what's left? Plans. Oh, you know, I talked to you about the my starflower socks that have got holes in them. I wasn't sure whether to frog them or not, and I haven't done anything about that. But something terrible happened. My pucker socks. Oh, so gorgeous. From General Hogbuffer. Put them on the other day. Oh my goodness, that is a massive hole. I don't know how I didn't notice that was there. What's the other one like? Oh, the other one's actually fine. So that is a nightmare, and I'm definitely not frogging these because I can't find another use for this yarn. My friend and I call this clown bath. Oh, that's not a very good picture, but it's such a great pattern, and it's done, all this fanciness is done with slip stitches, so it's not difficult to do at all. So I'm definitely going to have to fix those, but of course I haven't got any black yarn. But hey, if I've got any left over when I finish the Bird of Fire, I will use that to fix the pucker socks. So plans for that. I talked to you about Henshaws. Right, I think that's everything. So if you've enjoyed the video, then please click the thumbs up and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, what you think of the new setup and the new name, imaginative one. And if you want to know about more things that happen, just click the subscribe button and the little bell. And then come on over to the Ravelry group and have a look at the show notes. If you'd rather have the show notes somewhere else, do let me know. I'd just like to have you over on the Ravelry group because then you can see the other stuff that's going on. So yeah, if you fancy the Bird of Fire Cal, then just go on. Don't worry about times. There's no time limit on it. If you can't start it now, or you want to start thinking about dyeing, if you want to dye something for it yourself, you can dye one skein as well. That would be fab. Just post on there, have a bit of chatter, tell us what you're doing. I'd love to know about it. And yeah, that's it. Oh, you know that skein of Lowther? It's the same yarn from Biff Sugar Yarns as the as I'm making. Did I even tell you that? Rita socks. So the yarn is Biff Sugar Yarns, and this is Rosebud, I believe. And I have another skein of this. There it is. I have another skein, yeah, Rosebud, of this in Lowther, which is teal like this. And I've decided that when I get 100 subscribers, I will do that. And I'm at 67, so I'm 2/3 of the way there. When I get to 100, I'm going to do a giveaway for that. So that's going to be fun. Okay, so thank you for watching. Please get in touch if you're interested about anything I've talked about. I really enjoy having feedback from you. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. Shall we say goodbye to the cat? Thanks for watching. Bye.